Morality. It says morality only applies to man because he is rational. Well, morality is subjective, and rational, as we just shown, has an objective definition or objective criteria. So morality has nothing to do with rationality, and the fact that man is rational doesn't make him moral. Okay? I think a lot of people would argue that Pol Pot, the leader of Cambodia, supposedly killed millions of Cambodians. He was probably a rational individual. Was he moral? A lot of people would disagree. Hitler, Stalin, George Bush. We can go with a list of tyrants and murderers throughout history. Okay, Nero, Caesar, Alexander the Great. I mean, were these people rational? Were these people moral? What is morality? Morality is your personal opinion. That's what morality is. Philosophy should establish method of reasoning. No, that's the job of science. I just showed the rational scientific method. That's a method, and that belongs to science. Philosophy and physics, which are two branches of science, must follow that method. But philosophy is not the one that establishes the method. Okay, and again, it's this notion that philosophy is everything. It's the soil, as Ayn Rand said. When we use that vulgar notion of philosophy, then philosophy is everything. It's just a way of thinking, and then we can say that you start at philosophy. No, we don't. Philosophy is a branch of science, and science has to have some foundations before we can define its branches. Okay, and again, science is explanations, rational explanation. Says she was doing philosophy for living. There's no such monster. Philosophy for living? No. Philosophy, if it's part of science, it's got to explain something, because that's what science is under rational science. And if you have another notion, get into the ring and fight. Okay? Get your shield, get your sword. We're going to beat you up. Philosophy for living, that sounds like an opinion, like a recommendation. This is what you should do to be happy. This is what you should eat to be healthy. Diets, recommendations, politics, all subjective. It's all religion. But I like the last one. How do you know there is gravity? Okay, let's answer that one, because I think a lot of people have this same type of focus, the same type of question. Okay, so let's answer that one. Okay, the first one here, first let's address the first issue here, is knowledge. Let me get this right here. I got a new mouse, so it's a little harder to manipulate it. What does know have to do with philosophy? Again, you have to define philosophy. We're going to get into epistemology and introduce the word knowledge into philosophy. Does philosophy also include ethics, politics, and everything else? And if it is a science, like in the case of political science, what do we mean by science? How is it a science? In what way is it a science? What does science mean in that context? And if it's just a way of thinking, well, everybody's got a way of thinking. So, we're not answering the question by saying that, how do you know? In other words, what does this question have to do with in the context of philosophy? That's the first issue. But there's a more basic issue, and destroys this notion of, knowledge of gravity, okay? The first one is no has nothing to do with existence. It's at odds with existence, because existence, as we defined it now, is, physical presence. That's what it is. What is physical presence? It's an object that has location. Now, where do you see the word knowledge in there? Where is there a provision for knowledge? See, as soon as you introduce knowledge, as soon as you introduce epistemology, as soon as you introduce observers and perception and see, touch, and the other senses, you're making your notion of existence, like Ayn Rand did, you make it subjective. That's why you cannot introduce an observer. The way we figure out what exists, we kill all observers. We do it mafia style. We wipe out the witness. You have to kill everything alive in the universe. That what remains behind, that's what exists. That's the way we have to look at this. And when she says there is gravity, right? No, how do you know there is gravity? There is stands for exists. Okay, so That's what we're saying. I mean, the person should have said, how do you know that gravity exists? But it turns out that gravity is a concept. And so by the definition of exist, the objective, rational, scientific definition of exist, only objects may be said to exist. It is irrational to say, does gravity exist? Does a magnetic field exist? You can't say that in science. Not anymore. That's the old way. You're behind the times. You're thinking in terms of the old notions of existence. So, a lot of these things have to do with the new definitions that we have in this channel. Rational science. We have new definition. We have a new language. And until you understand that we have a new language, you're going to go out in circles because you're thinking of these terms in the vulgar notion, the ordinary speech, because they've never been defined. And you're bringing that ordinary speech, you're trying to introduce it into science and carry out a rational discussion using these undefined terms or misdefined terms or loosely defined terms. You can't do that. If you're going to talk sensibly, you're going to talk in a consistent way, you have to be rigorous with your definitions. We need to know what these words mean because they make or break your argument if, once they're defined rigorously, then then we can follow your presentation and then you can figure out whether you're talking consistently or not. So you need to define these terms, and that's what no one has done. That's why rational science came in and started doing that.